Welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to share with you guys today how we homeschool. If you are new here, welcome. I am a mom to 8 kids, going on 9. Crazy, I know it is crazy. We have a amazingly chaotic and blessed life, but we do homeschool our 8 children. Our oldest is 15. In high school, she's going to be a junior next year, and then we have another teenage son who's 14, and he will be starting his first year of high school this coming fall, all the way down to a 3-year-old in preschool, and then a little baby on the way. So we are super busy. We have 1 girl at the beginning and 7 boys. This is the first video in a series that I'm going to film. Today is going to be a little introduction into kind of our methodology and philosophy surrounding homeschooling, and then I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty of how I plan our year, because I think that will be an easy way for you to see kind of an overarching overview of what our school looks like and how I'm able to keep the kids in some combined classes and then have some independent work. This cannot be a comprehensive video because we just don't have time for that. I am just going to show you today what we do for our homeschool with our kids. I just want to be candid and genuine and share with you what we do. We do have 6 kids that we're homeschooling right now currently, and I think that's the max number that we're ever going to have, because I think I did the math one time and realized as my older kids are graduating and a new one's coming in, I think 6 is about the most I'll ever have. But I'm going to explain to you today how I break it down. So I'm actually not homeschooling 6 full grades, 6 different grades, and different subjects within each grade. I do a lot of combining and I do a lot of overlapping, and I think that's what people get the most overwhelmed about when they think about homeschooling a large family. Is they think 6 subjects or whatever per grade times how many kids, and they do the math like I have simplified it quite a bit. And because we've had to simplify things, we have had to really sharpen our focus and sharpen our priorities, because we just don't have time to cover all of the things that we would love to be able to do. We have really honed in on what our priorities are. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. I think I hesitate sometimes to put a label on our education because we don't fit into the perfect textbook case mold for any of it, and a lot of that just comes because of a lack of time and availability. But we do fit in as much as we can when we can, and it's definitely over the years become more and more clear to us the things that work the best for our family and the things that our kids enjoy the most, that are the most fruitful in their education. Those are the things I'm going to be sharing with you more in depth in later videos. Today I'm just going to give you a broader overview. So I have an older video that goes over some of my favorite homeschooling philosophy books, and I would say if we are going to put some labels on our methodology and philosophy, we are classically based with a Charlotte Mason approach. And by that, what I mean is, I guess if you want to put it in layman's terms, we have a living book, literature-based education, and a lot of our school revolves around quality, solid history and literature content. So we read a lot of biographies, we read a lot of first-person works, and just try to source some really good quality classical books. Some of my favorite authors are Susan Wise Bauer. She's really influenced me over the years. But I would say Charlotte Mason's own works have been so practical to our life as far as just application of principle. I think Susan and a lot of other classical writers have really inspired me, giving me some ideas for curriculums to look into and whatnot over the years, but I keep coming back to Charlotte Mason philosophy and methodology, where you let the children eat from the feast that you spread before them. You introduce them to ideas and concepts and people through quality books and quality content, and give them the tools and the resources that they need to apply this knowledge, because applied knowledge becomes wisdom. So our goal is not to have our children memorize a lot of rote facts and to do a lot of memory work with dates and names and places and things. We really want them to remember ideas, to remember people, to remember those places in a context of real life lived. I've seen that to be so fruitful as in the older kids' lives, and I'm going to show you very practically what that looks like. So I'm going to walk you through the younger years up to the older years. I have to at first be reminded of what our focus and our intentions and our goals for our children are. First, we want our children to be biblically based critical thinkers and Christ followers, and we want them to be good communicators so that they can communicate the wisdom that the Lord blesses them with through their education, and it will benefit the world and bring value to the world and the people around them. Because it's the springtime, this is the time of year, as I'm looking back over the previous year, that my mind is still fresh, ready to think about the upcoming school year. And it's easier for me to look into the coming year with like way too much energy and think we're gonna do all the things, we're gonna learn all those old ancient languages that we haven't gotten around to learning yet, we're gonna take all the classes and all the lessons and way overbook our schedule. If I let my planning take too long all the way through the summer, that is what happens. So I prefer to start my planning in the spring when we're just finishing up the previous school year and have a more realistic approach, I guess, to my planning and scheduling. So the first thing that I like to do is what we call a year-end audit. And I'm going to be sharing with you guys some resources that are going to be linked in the description below. And also, if you go to my Instagram, I'm going to let you send me your email and I will go ahead and send you a direct link to all of the files at once, which will be a lot easier to access that way. So I have my own list where I can go through each individual child and look back over the year and think through what were the things that really worked and what didn't work well. It might mean you might need a little tweaking into looking into a potential different curriculum or whatnot. I think it's just really beneficial to look back over the year positively and encourage your children and have a conversation with them about all the things that went really well and praise them for their diligence and their skills that they've acquired and how they've grown over the course of the year. Any chance that we get to encourage our children is such a gift, and we should definitely take advantage of it. So I let them do their own audit, the older kids, and then I spend some time with the younger kids asking them questions and just kind of having a chat about the previous year. And we really enjoy that time together, and it's also very helpful for me as a teacher. So after I have my initial kind of audit done with the kiddos, the next thing I do is sit down and think through my scope and sequence. I like to do for the scope and sequence is list out all the grades and forms, and I have a spreadsheet for this. For those of you wondering how in the world I do this with 8 kids, it's spreadsheets. The answer, plain and clear, is spreadsheets. Now, if you are unfamiliar with making spreadsheets, it's really easy to use Google Sheets and or Microsoft Excel, whichever one. It's very, very simple, and my spreadsheets are very simple. I'm going to show them to you. But if you don't have a spreadsheet, just having a piece of paper in a notebook, that's the key, is just keeping track of everything. We start feeling overwhelmed in our mind because we're trying to keep all the information up here, and if you can just get it out of your brain and look at it on paper, sometimes you realize it's really not as overwhelming as I thought it was once you put it down out of your mind. So one of the things that we do to simplify our homeschool is that we combine our children in what Charlotte Mason calls forms. And a form is 3 grades combined together. That does not mean that children on the upper end of the form are doing exactly the same work as children on the bottom end of the form. But it does give you a very clear outlined way to keep track of who can be in some classes grouped together and which ones need to step up to the next form, for example. We've been doing it this way for many years, enough that I can honestly say a lot of my children learn at different levels, and having them in forms has been very helpful for them. It encourages them to keep up with an older sibling, or it encourages them because they might be at the top of the form and they kind of feel like, you know, they're the oldest and they're doing the most out of the form, which encourages them as well. And so I have seen it to be highly beneficial. It has not held any of our children back. And I have seen these forms work very well the way they are grouped, as I'm going to show you. As you can see here, we have the grades in the left column. In the second column, we have the forms. Grades 1 through 3 is Form 1. And then we'll move down to Form 2, which is grades 4 through 6. Form 3 is grades 7 through 9, which I know is the beginning of high school, but this actually fits pretty well. And then 10th through 12th. So what I have here is my whole scope and sequence so that I can keep track, for example, of what science my kids are going to do in high school. And it does go very well with the ages and stages that our children have been in as far as where they need to be in a form. So this, as you can see, means I only ever teach 4 forms. That's the maximum I'm going to have. In fact, this year it was the first time I had all the forms. So after I've gone over my scope and sequence and have my trajectory figured out, then I go directly to my curriculum. Because it's literature based, I'm going to start with the General Feast book list. That just gives me kind of a grounding. I really appreciate the work that she's done putting her book lists together. And I will leave the link for her website and her curriculum in the box below. What I like to do is I pull up my Gentle Feast book lists for the history year that we're in. And for this year, for example, we are going to be in the blue year. So we're studying modern history this year, which is going to be very fun. I really just need to know what books. As you can see, I'm going to pull up the Gentle Feast book list now. And we have the blue year, and she goes by forms. She has a whole morning time, which I'll talk about later, scheduled. And then she goes by form, so she has Form 1 here, and she lists by subject in the left column, and then just the books, and then where you can find them. You can get them on Kindle. Sometimes they're free online. She gives you links. And then the far right column, she shows you which terms you can use them in. And so I love to get on here and look at the book lists and start filling in what books I'm gonna have. And I just start with Form 1. So I look at Form 1 and I go back over to my schedule and I start putting in the books that she has listed here. So here you can see I have my schedules. I've got Term 1 in one column here. You can do this on a piece of paper. Just make a line down. Put your subjects in the left side, make a line, and then if you just got one child in Form 1 right there in that column, you can see, you can just start putting in, if you want to print off the book lists, right? And just start putting in which book. So as you can see, these are all of the subjects that I can combine my children in their forms in. How you would do this if you weren't using a Gentle Feast is you just need to source the subjects that you want to study with your children and then start sourcing quality books within that subject. Look at book lists, look at recommendations. I'm going to leave a lot of links below in each form video for sources for great books, right? And so you can just simplify that. You're just going to go in and you're going to put in which book for each kid. Most of you watching this video are not going to have as many forms to do as me, but as you can see, I only have 4 forms, and that's a lot, but it's really not. It's not 8, it's not even 6. And that's the first place that I'm starting. I'm just going to go Form 1. So this is my sweeping overview. It really simplifies things so much for me. So after I've gone through my Gentle Feast curriculum and book list, and I've assessed a child, sometimes I see that she doesn't have a book that's available that's going to fit well for maybe one of the children, or maybe it's a book that I've read before with in a different year with different children and we just kind of didn't like it. I will look for another option. Actually, my first go-to is I go to AmblesideOnline.org because it's a free curriculum resource with amazing living book lists, and I'm going to show you that now. So this is how you get onto their website. And then you can scroll through, and they're very comprehensive. The volunteers that have put this website together have done an amazing job, and I am so appreciative and thankful for them. And you can see that you can just go ahead and pull up so many options. There's lists of books, and there's places to buy them, and how much they cost, and if they're free online anywhere. And I also like to get on here and look at the literature books that they have, because some of my kids it's not heavy enough of a load from a Gentle Feast, depending on where they're at within the form, and they just need some other books supplemented to be reading independently on the side. So this is a great free resource, and even a lot of the books that they list on here you can find on Kindle, really cheap on Amazon, or at your local library. The literature books, the geography books, definitely the history books, some of the science books are living literature books. They're fabulous books that you can find and source very easily, sometimes for free. Right, so now that all kind of the hard part's done with the scheduling, as far as the basic foundational parts I have in place, then I like to go back through and plan our morning time. I started calling it morning time when my kids are really little, and now it doesn't really happen for us always in the morning. Sometimes it's in the afternoon. But what morning time is like all those extra, I like to call them like the beauty parts of our school. And there are subjects that we can all do together across all the forms. So it does fit some years, the easiest in the morning, right after breakfast and devotions. Some years it's something that we pull out while we're having a little tea time in the afternoon. And the subjects that these include are poetry, listening to beautiful composer music and just learning about the composer, studying beautiful pieces of art, memorizing poetry together. This is fun to do right after breakfast, and it's not hard. You read a poem after breakfast every day. Your kids will have it memorized, probably by at least the end of the month, if it's a long one. If it's a short one, maybe by the end of the week. It's amazing what they can remember. So I plan out morning time because that's the next thing that I would plan that's not individualized for the kids. So we have our morning time lists include everybody. I kind of alternate reading by forms as I go through. I read like fables that are on our book list for our young kids. I'll read a little blip of a fable, maybe a few things for them if they're squirrely, and then they get down and the older kids remain and we'll read some of their books together and work on their poetry memorization. Sometimes it's the reverse. The big kids need to get to class, so we go through their things first, we read a fable together, do their memory poetry work and read their poems, and then they're dismissed because they're going to their online class, and then I finish up with the little kids. So as you can see, the Gentle Feast has a whole list of resources, but I also just compile my own sometimes. Like there's beautiful, wonderful missionary biographies. If one of the older kids is assigned a biography, that might be the book that I choose to read aloud. Sometimes I'll pick one of the literature books to be our morning time read aloud. We usually rotate through the fables. We love to do Aesop's fables with the kids, and we like to do Plutarch's lives as they get a little bit older, and then actual Plutarch. And even Shakespeare is sometimes fun to throw in during this time. I also go through and find on Ambleside is a great resource for this again, poems, and I will list more details about these resources as I go through the forms. So now that all of our core subjects have been mapped out, I just need to map out where my children are independently right now. I do not try to put my kids in boxes and say that they need to be in this grade and doing this certain book in a particular year, because they just don't all fit in those boxes, to be honest. But I do like to take some time as I'm reading through my book lists and looking for the right fit for the forms. I then need to break it down and individualize it per child, but that I'm going to get into when I go into specifics about each form with each child. So thank you so much for joining me for this video. I'm so excited to have you guys here. I'm so excited to finally share with you guys some of these details that have been weighing on my heart for so long to share, that just felt so overwhelming because it is a lot. But breaking it down for you, I hope is helpful for you. Please let me know in the comments below your questions, but I do have upcoming videos where I'm going to go into detail about curriculum, planning, and individualizing for the specific grades coming up, Lord willing, in the next couple of days. So stay tuned for those, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.